Hey, hey,
Hey, hey,
Thursday, April the 2nd.
it is like a continued Fool's Day for us.
Hey, look, man, sometimes in my world, it's that way um, every day.
Yeah, well, I hear you. I hear you. I vouch for it. You're a fool every day.
That's right. Hey, man, it is great to be here tonight. It's great to have you with me tonight, Travis. Randall's going to try to jump in here in a few minutes. He has a church service that he's doing tonight, so we'll hope that he gets on here. But I'm glad you're here tonight, man, um, um, because of the subject we're going to talk about. And you have so much real life experience with the topic of being a resilient father, and a lot of that is really lacking today.
Yeah.
Um, but we're going to get out into that in just a second. If you're here with us for the first time, hey, welcome. We're glad to have you here. We hope that you'll follow our page, the Ground Zeroes page. We hope that you'll like our videos, share them out. I believe that we give really down to earth, practical messages to help men be the men, the husbands, the fathers that we're supposed to be. We live in a time, I believe, that that's not taught anymore, and we're going a lot of times by the way of what the world says that we're supposed to be, vice what God says that we're supposed to be. So great to have you on, Travis. We're talking resilient fatherhood. Now, look, that's not the "I never struggled" dad, because there's not one of those. We all struggle, and it's not the highlight reel dad. I'm talking about the dad that gets hit, and
Hmm.
hit hard with pressure, with work stress, money stress, family stress, kids acting crazy, stress in the marriage, all of those things that happen. Yet he doesn't fold, and he doesn't run, and he doesn't make his family pay for it. You've heard the saying, "Don't bleed on the ones that didn't cut you."
Right.
And so that's what we're going to be talking about. Now, I'll tell you, if you wanted to sum this up in one line, it would be this: stay connected, stay calm, and stay in it. Stay
Hmm.
in it. So, so yeah, I know you have a lot of experience, a lot of experience getting the opportunity to be resilient. So give us a little background on kind of your just a quick summary of your situation and kind of the things that you struggle with.
Sure. Yeah. Man, you talk about, don't bleed on the ones that support you. And unfortunately, that's part of my story too. I had that season of my life, but, me and my wife got married. We had two healthy boys. My oldest one is, he's the textbook definition ADHD. He's loud and in your face and all over, but they were healthy and they were, they did boy things and things were good. And then we decided to have a third child. And when we did, he was born. He was 1 pound 6 ounces. Had a grade 4 brain bleed. He's now 15 years old, and I can't even begin to tell you the number of surgeries that he's had. He's still nonverbal, non-mobile. We have to feed him through a feeding tube every day. In a wheelchair. Surgery after surgery, and so it's been through a lot. And then we ended up having a fourth kid, and he's got autism. So we got a little extra challenge thrown in there in the midst of all of it too. So yeah, to say that there's been some challenges and some resilience needed is for sure. And there's been a lot of scary moments and a lot of challenges that have gone with it. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And on top of that, you have marriage. You have making sure that is being taken care of and being fed properly.
Hmm.
Have a job that you have to do. You have ministry that you're in, and so to be able to balance all of those things
Hmm.
means that you have to be pliable. You have to be flexible, not in the sense of compromising yourself,
Right.
but a lot of times, we say, "Hey, we got to keep the main thing."
Yeah.
But when we get into situations like you're in, sometimes the main thing changes from day to day,
Yeah.
and you're a lot like me. Me and you and Randall, we're kind of cut from the same cloth. We don't
Hmm.
like change.
Right.
Yeah. But that's part of it. That's part of being resilient. And things are different. Even I'd like to say 20 years ago. I would even say 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Things are just way different. And there's so much that's getting thrown at us from the world. We have to figure out, okay, which hill am I willing to die on? Because I'm not going to die on everyone. And I know I said this last week. I think there's maybe one or two that I'm willing to die on, and that's it. Now, years ago, man, I tell you what, I'm going to fight every fight. I'm going to win every battle. But in the process of doing that, I lost the war.
Yeah.
And so you got to pick and choose what you're going to do. And absolutely. Like I said earlier, the whole gist of this is to stay connected and to stay calm and to stay in it, stay connected to Christ. Because if you're not connected to the vine, you're going to try to parent off pride and trauma and all this kind of things. And if you're not getting that sustenance of the word and the Spirit of God speaking into you, you're going to go flat pretty quick.
Absolutely.
When we talk about staying calm in the moment, because anger feels powerful, but it doesn't disciple.
Right.
And staying in it. When you fall, how can I say this? Resilient dads don't pretend.
Right.
We don't fake it till we make it. We repent, we repair, and we re-engage.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I've got this series that I'm working through here, and I sent you a message earlier. I'm like, we ain't gonna get through this tonight. This is gonna be a multi-part series. Once I started digging in this, probably only going to get through 2 points here, but let's get into this, man, and kind of talk about what that resilience really means. The resilient dad, the resilient father, is a man who abides in Christ under pressure, repents quickly, keeps showing up, and leads with humility and love. And so, I know your story. Tell me kind of, in that kind of definition, kind of how you walk through that. And I know a lot of times you walk through it on hands and knees because you had to crawl through it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you failed, but you always got up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's an important thing is to recognize that you're going to fail. I mean, as dads, we're going to mess up, and I made a lot of mistakes, and for a long time I beat myself up those things of what I did wrong. But what's amazing is the power of an apology to your family. When you recognize it and you come and authentically for real. There you go. For real, apologize. And and it's and that's one thing I think. We beat ourselves up so much. And I remember having somebody tell me once, like, if you don't get frustrated with yourself as a dad, then you don't really care. And that really hit home for me, because I was like, it is, because, when we make mistakes, it's not just that we impact ourselves, but when we see things that impact our family, that's why it hurts so bad. And we beat ourselves up. So it's so important to recognize that we're all going to have our moments. We're all going to fail. But I'll tell you, for me, after my son was born, we, he was, premature, spent 6 months, first 6 months of his life was in a hospital. We're trying to balance that with having 2 young kids at home. My oldest son, like I said, was in my faith. And in all fairness to him, he was, he expected things to be like they used to be. So welcome to the show, Randall. We were just talking about you. And Chuck muted you, so you can't answer back. This is perfect.
No audio from, no mic on you, Randall.
Don't hear anything. That's his week. This is usually me every week.
See, this is why I always get on early, because I don't want to be the problem.
No. I got on early tonight and everything worked perfectly first try. It's when I don't allow myself.
Now?
There you are.
All right, very good, very good. I got me a new fancy microphone in it. I've been playing with it and just hadn't actually used it in real world situation yet. So hopefully the audio is a little better.
You sound good now that we can hear you.
Yeah. So sorry to be late, but we had a Monday, Thursday communion service at San Rock Methodist tonight, and so I've been out there with my church family celebrating Holy Thursday. So I'm glad I was able to make it back in time.
Hey, yeah, man, good to have you here. We were going to go with you or without you, just like you said. So
there you go. That's as it should be.
I have to say though, you did miss a great pregame conversation that I did not record, nor would it come out of my possession.
Wow, I hate that I missed that.
Yeah.
I'll catch you up later.
It was colorful.
Pictures to follow. So yeah, so that resilience, man, it's not pretending you're fine.
Right.
I think that can get you into more trouble than it can anything else. And it's a steady faith. Which, look, when you're in the middle of those situations, especially a situation like you're in, I mean, I can only the visual I get is someone trying to hold basketballs underwater, and you just try to do the best that you can. But wow, it's steady faith.
I'll tell you the big thing, and I know you talk about it a lot on here. One of the things that absolutely was a game changer for me was to get men in my circle. When it happened, I did like most guys. I went into isolation. I can do this on my own. Nobody's going to understand. And I got this. And the only result was a lot of anger and frustration and failure, and my family paying the price for it, and them having to deal with all of that anger, and it was ugly. And I remember when I walked into a men's group, and honestly, the only reason I went was just so I could tell my wife I tried it and it didn't work. And these guys were real, and it was so refreshing to me to hear these guys they were real and honest about the junk in their life. And that for me was the beginning of the change for me. I mean, that really was the moment that I realized, okay, there's other guys in the church that are messed up. They all look good on Sunday, just like I look good on Sunday. But we've all got our battles going on, and that was a game changer for me, getting plugged in those guys. And go ahead.
I think the tendency that we have, and you talk about withdrawal when we have something like that going on, the tendency is think, I'm the only one dealing with not only this issue, all these other guys, they got their acts together, their lives are smooth, everything's under control. Look at them, why can't mine be that way? And man, when you get into that community, into that group, like what you were talking about, and you realize, hey, we're all pretty jacked up. We've all got stuff going on, and we're better together. That's the thing. We're better together.
Yeah. The big thing I learned is there's going to be times I'm going to fall, but man, how great is it when you have other men that they're going to grab you by the arm and pull you. Chuck, you mentioned earlier, there's times I was crawling on hands and knees, and there was times I had guys that grabbed me by the ankle and they were dragging me, kicking and screaming, and it wasn't always pretty seasons, but man, I'm so grateful for it and so necessary. Had to have those guys in my life like that.
Yeah, and you know what? It's really a shame. We were talking about sometimes before we started the podcast, Travis and I were talking about, a lot of times that we do kind of retreat to ourselves, and we make bad decisions, and then we pray for crop failure, and so you make these decisions, and then you hope that there's not going to be consequences, There's always going to be consequences, but the great part is when you have that honest confession, not only to God, but confess your sins one to another. Not that you may be saved, but that you may be healed. Healed in the aspect of, man, my thinking is healed. I'm not going to do that again. And so, when we talk about, the last series we did on brotherhood, golly, I mean, it goes right into this as well. If you're going to be a resilient dad, a resilient man of God, you're not going to do it by yourself.
No,
it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And that healing of your mind, that's sort of like that renewing of your mind that we all talk about so often. That we're transformed by the renewing of our mind. We're transformed from a hurting, unhealthy man into a healthy and strong and able to handle your stuff. I think that's in Romans 12, isn't it?
I believe that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Hey, I'm just go ahead and put this out there right now. As I was putting this together and putting the scriptures together, I intentionally went past Romans 12. I did end up in Romans 15, but
it'll find you. You can try to hide. It'll find you.
All right. Okay. Hey, so let's get into it real quick. Let's talk about biblical resilience versus just being the tough guy.
Mm-hmm.
So the world's vision or version is self-reliance, image management. We always care more about what other people think of us. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, well, all the time when you do that, you're really not worried about, hey, what does God have to say about this? What is he thinking about this? And we go into an emotional shutdown. And the result of that is normally isolation. Why? Because it's shame mostly. Mm-hmm. So that's the world's version. But the biblical version of that is a dependence on God, integrity. Man, every time, Randall, we talk about integrity. And I want you to share it in a few minutes again on the little piece of paper. That you have up in your bus. Perseverance, repentance, and community. Perseverance, staying with it, staying in it. Repentance, not going to do that again. And community, man, I need my brotherhood. That's scriptural. And not only that, it's common sense and it's wise.
Yeah. We've all known, and I'm sure we've probably all been that tough guy at some point in our lives, thinking that that's how we can deal with some of those things. And that is just I know how it worked out for me, and I'm sure if you guys told your stories, you could share how it worked out for you, and it was not good. But yeah, you eventually, if all you got to depend on in yourself is yourself, that's overwhelming. Especially, Trav, you get in a situation like you're in with your sons, man. I mean, I look at that and I think about that, and I have thought to myself more than one time, if that dude didn't have Jesus, he'd be in trouble.
100%. Yeah. And I was going to tell me about that yesterday. I said, I could not imagine facing the things that we faced without the faith that I have. The hopelessness of it. Absolutely. Couldn't imagine it.
Yeah.
And the thing that I wish more guys would understand, and I wish I would have understood sooner, is the weight that comes off your shoulders when you're authentic. When you are putting up that face every week, when I walk into church, people are like, man, you're so strong and your faith is so strong. And I'm like, you have no idea what's going on in my life. And, but it's a burden and it's so exhausting. But, when I finally found that group of guys that I trusted, and I just quit and I just got real. And, my wife may say I'm more of an open book than I should be at sometimes now, but that's a burden I'm not going to carry anymore. And men need to realize that, like, it is life-changing and just such a relief to do that.
So, because when that's your mindset, when your mindset is to go and I'm going to put on this front, I'm going to put on this face. And when you walk out of the room, what's the first thought? Who saw through it?
Yep. Yeah. Where did I fail?
Who was not fooled? And
Yeah.
and that will eat you alive. Absolutely eat you alive.
And you know who's not fooled? Your wife and your kids.
That's exactly right.
And that's where, unfortunately, that's where the ugly comes out. Is you can put up that, even if everybody else is fooled, they're going to catch you at home.
Yeah, they're looking at you, rolling their eyes, going, "Oh, there he is again." Mr. Tough Guy.
And you know, Travis, you were talking about coming into a church service or into a situation like that, and people are like, "Man, you got it all together." You're right, man, because they don't know that you walked in that door on a wing and a prayer, man. That's all. It's all you got. It took everything that you had just to walk in the door.
Absolutely.
And so this is what that shows in that situation is a dependence on God. Now, you could have been anywhere else in the world, and people probably would have understood. You know, just like your wife and kids can't be fooled, God can't be fooled either.
Right.
He sees straight through it. And so when he sees that you have that dependence on him, man, he's going to work.
Yeah.
He's going to work in ways probably not the way you may think it's going to happen, but at the end of the day, it's going to be what's best for you.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, and I just from a little bit different perspective, full disclosure, I mean, there have been Sunday mornings when I walked in the church as the pastor on a wing and a prayer, just struggling and fatigued and tired, and you know, how am I going to get through this? And kind of the same thing sometimes. Who's gonna see? Who's going to notice? And you know, my church family does, and they check on me, and that is so good. But you know,
the people that you're in brotherhood with know.
Yeah, but we don't think about that sometimes. We don't think about, you know, we look up to the front of the church, and there's the pastor, and he's the strong guy. He's the one that's got it all together, and you know, we fail to remember sometimes that that's just a human. That's just a dude, you know, who's got a wife and who's got children and who's got, you know, bills and who's got, you know, things that go on too. But we don't think about those things. And I don't say that from a look at me standpoint. I say that to others as a look at your pastor standpoint. Look at the shepherd of the flock and care for him, because it matters. It makes a big difference because he's got stuff too.
And how many pastors don't have that, brother? Because they succumb to that image, that pressure. You know, do a quick Google search on failed marriages by pastors, and you'll see real quick. Yeah, you know, pastors are not immune at all, and it's a challenge that a lot of pastors don't have. They're too concerned about the image to get the real help that they need, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I've got a pastor still, and I love him and I care for him, and I talk to him regularly and pray for him regularly. And you know, he's a brother to me, and he's a mentor to me. And, you know, I feel that it's our responsibility as the church to care for them.
Absolutely.
Emotionally and spiritually, and pray for them.
Absolutely.
You know, when I was going through one of the hardest times in my life, I had a friend of mine, still a dear friend of mine in San Antonio, Pastor Anthony McGrew, and we met up once a week, just to talk. And he would ask me this question every time that we would meet. First thing out of the chute, he would say, "What do you need tonight? Do you need a pastor or do you need a friend?" And based on that, I mean, it was all going to be biblical, but it was two different perspectives. And the perspective he was going to come with to me was what I needed, not what he thought I needed. And so you know, that's that part of the community that really just kind of stands out to me as being so very important. to being able to bounce back when we get knocked down. Look, if you don't think for a minute that you're not going to get knocked down, I don't know what to tell you other than buckle up, because it's going to happen sooner or later. Hey, I want to read something to you real quick that I wrote this down as I was going through some of the scriptures today, and then I want to get your thoughts on it. And it's from a number of different scriptures that talk about the biblical resilience being versus just being tough. And the Psalms, Psalms 13 and 46 kind of model this. Psalm 13, it transitions from a deep despair to joy, which would be a journey of feeling forgotten by God to trusting Him. Man, that's trust. You have to trust. You got to get to a place where you trust God. And then on to Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength and ever-present help in time of trouble. Golly, do you know how many times that I have prayed that? And not, it was almost to a point of trying to reassure myself, not to ask for anything, but God, this is your promise to me. You're my refuge and my strength. And in this trouble that I'm in, I choose to believe that you're here with me. And I know you guys have been in situations like that too.
Absolutely. You talk about trust. And for me, it's like, where does that trust come from? And this is something that me and my wife do on a regular basis is, when we're going through the really hard times and the struggles and we're facing another surgery or whatever it is that's going on, is we do a lot of reflection on the goodness of God and look back on what are all the things that He's done in our life. Because, how many other times have we been sitting in a situation and thought, man, God, here we are again. It's another, then afterwards we can see the work that He did. And we have to go back and remind ourselves of that on a regular basis, and there's so many things in our life that we overlook. We've got a trail out here behind our house, and me and my wife try to walk the trail together every day together. And, we just talk about, because of our situation, traveling and vacations and the things some other families get to do is a lot harder for us. But married couples take a walk and enjoy it and appreciate it to the same level that we do every day. We learn to shift our focus and trust that God's going to provide things. It's just not going to look like what we expect it to look like a lot of times, but a lot of reflection. I mean, that's been the thing that's really helped us, is just continual reminders of the goodness of God and the things that He's done. And, when you read through them, you see, the things that He's done for His people, and knowing that He loves us the same, and He's going to continue to do those for us. And even those where it didn't go the way that I wanted, I didn't get the answer that I wanted. But I can look back on those moments, but now I can see what God was doing, and I've shared the story with you all before. I mean, that day that my son was born in that hospital, all this, they started with that question of, God, what could you possibly do from then? Here we are 15 years later, and He's still showing me what He can do with this. And those are the things that I have to lean into. If I'm going to trust, I just have to remind myself of the goodness of who He is and what He has done in our life previously.
Yeah, the greatest predictor of the future is what? The past. Mm-hmm. And so, but when we get into that storm or that situation or that event that is kind of shaking our foundation and rocking our world, if we'll just take a moment and look back at all the times that He has been so faithful, all the times that we have been in that shaken place before, and He has steadied us, and He has provided, and He has made a way where there was no way, and has carried us through things that we thought weren't humanly possible to survive. Yeah, I think sometimes we spend too much time looking to the future and how am I going to get through this, rather than looking to the past. And so, God has already taken me through things much worse than this. So, absolutely. Yeah. But looking back and seeing that goodness of God is so important.
Yeah, and it's completely changed my prayer life. I was always taught, pray for the things you need. That's how we grow up. And if something's going on, let's pray for it. Something's wrong, let's pray for it. And 90% of my prayer life now is a prayer of thankfulness. I mean, it's just, I do. I go through the day of just all the things that I'm grateful for that God's done for us that day. And even on the hard days, going through those. And it just, I mean, it changes your mindset when you really focus in and drive in on those.
Yeah.
That's an amazing way to start the day, guys, is to start the day in a posture of gratitude, looking at, just the fact that you have breath in your lungs and blood in your veins and vision and able to stand up, as hard as it might be to stand up out of the bed, that you can stand up out of the bed and take those steps and what, and when you break it down to all those little things that we take for granted so often, man, it puts you in a posture of gratitude and of thankfulness that does change your whole day. It just changes the way you see everything.
Yeah. When my son was about a year old, he was getting we had to put a trach in, that was a really, really difficult thing for us to do. And there was a family that was in the hospital next to us. We were separated by a curtain, was it? And they had a 16-year-old son who had a trach his whole life. And while we were in the hospital for goodness, to a month during that trip, their son passed away. And I'll never forget sitting in the hallway and talking to that family, and they heard our son making noises after he got, because a lot of times with the trach, they can't make noise, bypasses their airway. And they heard our son making noise. And this family who was watching their son die was celebrating for us the things that were going on. And I thought, man, what a beautiful picture of a family that's learned to just lean into God. And they would, they were praying for us in the time, and I'll never forget that film. We ran into him one other time, probably a year after that, and haven't seen him since. But, it's those moments like that family has no idea the impact that they made on us during that time. And for me, I take that like, man, I want to be that for somebody else, regardless of what I'm facing. I want people to see my genuine faith, not that fake faith that I walked in on Sundays and people said I was strong when I wasn't. But I want to see that genuine faith. And you will not have that genuine faith unless you are intimately involved in your walk with God. Like you're not going to lead your family. You're not going to lead your kids, those around you, if you're not one-on-one with God yourself and building that relationship first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely. That fake thing you were talking about, that's the kind of things that will make you grab a stranger's backpack and then pray for crop failure for the result thereof.
That's right. Yeah.
Hey, look, two scriptures that I pulled out that kind of gives kind of a progression of how we could take a path to be more resilient as fathers, as husbands, as just men of God. And so bear with me just a minute, because I really want to try to kind of set the stage for this. Mark 1:35 says this, speaking of Jesus: very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Mark 1:35 shows us the practice of seeking God. We have to get out of whatever situation we're in and actively seek God. Now, I talked a little bit about Psalm 46 a minute ago, that kind of provides the theology behind it, declaring that, God is our refuge and our strength. But just as Psalm 46 tells us to be still and know that I'm God, Jesus's withdrawal to that place in Mark 1:35 is the physical application of that stillness, getting into that place where you can hear from God.
Yeah.
So you have to be intentional to seek God. And we're going to wear that word out here. You have to be intentional. You can't just be flighty and expect to hear from God. And if you want to be able to bounce back from the things of life that keep You ever see those blow up clowns that you hit it and it pops back up at you?
Mhm.
No matter which way you hit it, it pops back up. I'm not saying I want to be a clown, but that's the resiliency that I want to have. I know that's probably a bad example.
Yes, I think it's a great example.
Only one I've got. So listen to this. The scriptures that I just talked about, there is a clear progression. Psalm 46 is the theological promise that God is our refuge. Mark 1:35, Jesus gives us the habit of seeking him. And Matthew 26, that's where through 38 is where Jesus takes Peter, James, and John aside, and he tells them, that his soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. And he asked them to stay. You remember, just stay awake and pray. And 3 times Jesus I see myself in this picture. 3 times Jesus returns and finds the disciples sleeping.
Yep.
And he doesn't just tell them, he warns them. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And then in verse 46, Jesus tells them to get up because his hour has come and his betrayer, who is Judas, is approaching. So what's the progression here? Psalm 46 is the promise that God is refuge. Mark 1:35 is the habit of seeking God. And Matthew 26:36 through 46 is Jesus's ultimate test of prayer and refuge as he faces the cross. Now, how does that apply to a resilient father? Well, it's the same pattern that needs to be adapted in our lives. That in times of trouble in the home, in the workplace, ministry, whatever the case may be, that God is our refuge. And a habit of prayer will keep our focus on him and not on the problem. And then at some point, we're all going to face a dire situation. And it will require both that refuge and that habit. The question I would ask is, what habits are you going to employ? Ready, go.
Well, I mean, if I'm honest, I've done both. I mean, I've had good habits and I've had bad habits. I'll tell you, man, you talk about getting away to a place of refuge and just, seeking solitude in that verse. I remember when I was in the hospital for a long time, he was in an incubator and like we couldn't touch him. We couldn't hold anything except just sit and look at him. And my wife, being the mother that she is, she could sit there all day long and just be with him. He is a man that drove me crazy because I'm like, I can't do anything. We're fixers. And to sit there and see him in there and see that there's absolutely nothing that I could do. I mean, there's times I couldn't, I remember one time I was there maybe 30 minutes. I was like, I gotta get out of here. Like it was just, and I would Signal Mountain up here. There's a lookout on Signal Mountain, and that's where I would drive. And I would sit on there and I would just, I'd pour my heart out to God. And the conversations weren't always pretty, there weren't always moments of praise, but I read through the Psalms and it's like, David, I mean, he had struggles and he was real with God. And he's like, God, I'm struggling through this, but if you look at the pattern of David, he always came back to the goodness of God at the end of it. And that's, there's times where I had to talk through those things. And, one of the biggest lessons I learned in that was, when you're seeking God, you have to shut up. And there was times I would go on, and I had to sit there and I'd be like, I don't have the words. And I would just sit and just listen and just absorb. And, thunderous clouds that spoke to me, none of that, but man, to say that I didn't feel God in those moments and I didn't feel his presence and his reassurance. Absolutely. I did, without a doubt.
When you were just saying that, I can just picture that prayer between us and God, and here we start rolling off all this stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, but wait, wait, go back."
Yeah. Listen.
And finally, he's like, "Shut up."
I know. We call God the Father for a reason. There is nothing in my life that has made me understand and appreciate God as the Father more than becoming a father myself. And how many times your kids come to you and they keep going on and on and on. If you just shut up for a minute, we could solve this. But sometimes you're like, okay, well, I'm going to sit back and let you solve it your way then. And
I have the answer. I have the answer because I've been there before. If you'll just hold up. Yeah. And again, back to the word intentional, Chuck. And we've talked before about that 14 minutes that I have on my bus every morning, and how I had kind of the first several days had gotten in the habit of just doing all the talking. And then I did hear in my spirit one morning, be quiet. Just be quiet. And so I have been intentional, and I have made it a point to have times where I don't say a word. I just listen. I just listen. And those times are equally as powerful, if not more, than the times when I'm having that one-sided conversation. So listening is, because here's the truth. He's got a lot to say. And sometimes he says it through our spirit, but sometimes he says it through his word. He'll bring to remembrance through the spirit of scripture that applies to exactly what you're dealing with, or exactly, the answer you're looking for. So it's sometimes it's just that scripture pops into your heart and into your spirit, and oh wow, man, there's your answer.
Yeah, a lot of times I hear, you remember what I told you last time?
Remember?
We had this conversation once already.
Yeah, right.
But I think when we, Randall, like you were talking about, when we get to that place where we're the ones that's doing all the talking, none of the listening, I think that's where we move from, like, trying to foster that biblical resilience into, I'm just going to be the tough guy.
Yeah.
And do it my own way. And the truth is, God will let you do it your own way. He will let you go around the mountain. He will let you go to the backside of the desert. Question is, how many times you want to go around the mountain?
Yeah.
I remember when you were talking about when God told you how to have the answer to these. I remember a time I was so angry, and I was angry at God because I was praying for these things and praying for things. And I've told you that, matter of fact, the day after this happened, I called you and told you about it. This has been a decade ago. And I said, I'm like, God, why aren't you talking to me? I'm doing my best to get in your presence and voice these things to you. And he said, you can't hear me because you're talking too much. I'm not quiet. You're too loud.
Yeah.
Quiet.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you something, man. Y'all remember the old Bose speaker commercial, the guy in the chair? That's how I was, man. I was like, and once I really started to learn how to do that, and I'm not going to sit and say that, once he said that, I was obedient to that from now, because I wasn't. Those habits have to be changed, right?
That's right.
And so as I began to really be intentional to listen, man, the things that I would hear from him, it's like, why didn't you tell me this before? He's like, I tried, but you wouldn't shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Job 13:5. I tell people that's my life verse. If you would shut up, that would be wisdom. I think that verse jumped out to me when I was like, man, that is me right there. That's my life verse.
That's the Travis Upgrove version, right?
Yeah, that might be the one we go with this fall at our retreat.
So here's the question, though, Chuck. When we find ourselves in those places, when we find ourselves, in the fire, which way do we go? Do we open ourselves up to hear the voice of God, to hear the solution that he has to offer, or is it like, well, dadgummit, I'm gonna I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna and you get mad. How am I gonna get out of it? I'm gonna get out of it this way, rather than, all right, Lord, I know you know the beginning from the end. I just need you to show me, and then sit down and shut up, and wait for some guidance. And unfortunately, and probably as men, we more lean towards our own solutions, and our own way out, because that's the first thing we think to lean on. We don't think first to lean on God. We don't think first to turn to Him and to listen to Him for the answers. And that, that comes from years and years of conditioning that you got to do it yourself. You want it done, you got to do it yourself.
Yeah, and as you're talking about that, I remember the scripture that says this: there's safety in a multitude of wise counsel. And so I think when we get to that place where we're saying, I'm going to do it my way, is this way or the highway, blah, 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 I think that's when we have really made ourselves into our own God, and we're just going to do it. And we're not going to take any advice from other people. I know that I had a couple of people that, and Randall, you were one of them. Travis, we haven't met yet, but there was a couple of people. I was like, man, I need to get these people invested in my life because they're wise. They've been through things. They know how to bounce back. They know how to be resilient. They know how to be flexible without compromise. But I have to get myself out of the way and do it God's way. And that's not a one and you're done either. That's they say anything that you do 21 times in a row becomes a habit. So, there's some habits that are going to have to break. And so, wise counsel helps you to be flexible and resilient.
The thing I think of when you talk about that, and I was thinking about this when Randall was saying that as well, along the same lines, is no matter what you're going through, there are godly men out there been through it. And I remember when my son was born, and I'm like, man, there's not a guy out there that's going to understand. It was like I was the only person that ever had a kid with cerebral palsy on earth. You're just in that mentality. What's been amazing to me is how many godly people that run into that have been there for me. We had a football coach, local football coach, that came and spoke at a work event that we had. And his whole story was about his daughter with cerebral palsy and what he'd gone through and his story. And I remember walking out there, and I went up, just briefly introduced myself to him, and I left there thinking, man, I need a guy like that in my life. And lo and behold, a couple months later, I walk into church in there with his daughter, and we could, and it's, and it's when we put ourselves out there and we're open and real about what we're struggling with. There's other godly men that are there, and the thing is it gives him healing to help me, just like it gives healing to help others. When you see purpose in your story, that helps you as well. But man, the godly counsel, like God's going to give us answers. It may not be through the thundercloud that we want to hear on the mountaintop, but sometimes it's going to be those men in our lives, and we have to have the maturity to shut up and listen to them as well.
But you won't find those. You won't find those in isolation.
No, never.
You won't find anything helpful in isolation at all.
I've got this really ugly voice when I go to isolation that it does a better job of telling me my failures than it does encouraging me. And that was about
Yep.
You're a self-talker, are you? Talk yourself in about anything?
Just about, yeah.
Greg Conkle is on. I'm reading his comment here, and both Alex and Gritter and Greg Conkle said this: how small groups, how that community has been just so important to their walk. Just the difference that makes, and again, we go back to the whole brotherhood thing, and I mean, this all just fits together just so cleanly, I think.
Yeah. Two things that come to mind. One is excuses that guys use is, well, it's hard to connect at my church. And I say garbage. I go to a big church, and it is hard to connect there if you come in and sit in the pew and then walk out. But I don't accept that. I went there and I sought out the guys that ran the men's ministry, and I said, I'm going to plug in and I'm going to be involved and I'm going to get to know you guys. You have to be intentional. Again, and I know you love that word, but you have to be intentional. It is very easy to not get plugged in. It takes intentionality to plug in. The other thing is, we talk about this, having that quiet time, that time with God, is I hate the excuse of, well, I don't have time. Do you know who I am? Do you know what I have going on? And two parts of that is, one, think about what you're saying. I don't have time for God. That's a real statement itself. And two, when guys say that, I just want to say, okay, let me see your phone. Let's pull up your screen time report and then tell me that you don't have time for God, because I'll raise my hand. I'm guilty of it. I get wrapped up and I get myself busy with things that could easily be set aside, and I'll justify them. But those two things, we have to be intentional to seek men out, and there's really no excuse to not have time with God. There's none at all.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you really want an eye opener, go look at your screen time on your phone.
Yeah. So that whole thing about connecting, it's part of that, and I think part of the reason that men are fearful, and I'm just going to say it, they're afraid to connect. It's not that they don't want to; it's they're fearful of another man finding out they're not the tough guy that they try to appear to be. Because it requires you to become vulnerable, to let down some walls that have to come down if you're ever going to make that connection and have those conversations that are so vital and valuable. But we have to get past ourselves. We have to get past our own egos and our own, whatever you want to call it, pride. We have to get past those things and be willing to say, you know what, I got some stuff I need help with. I don't have all the answers. Actually, I don't have any of the answers. But I'm hoping that somebody in this group has.
Yeah. And I think we owe it to those guys to be real on ourselves. A lot of guys are not going to open up and be real until they see, and that's what it took for me. It was when I walked into that group and I listened to guys that were really honest about the junk they were fighting. I'm like, wow, these guys are with me and they're struggling too. And we have that. And the other thing I would say, this weekend, this Easter weekend, and I would challenge guys to, in your church, there's going to be a lot of guys in that church that don't normally come to church, and they're going to walk in and they're going to walk out. And man, we as men, we need to be intentional about men. Like, we need to look for those men and pick out one guy and say, I don't know that face. I'm going to grab him. I'm going to connect with him. We're going to grab coffee. We're going to do lunch. And especially if it's a guy that, if they give their life during that Easter service, and somebody in that church needs to be grabbing that guy, one of the other guys, and said, hey, welcome to the brotherhood. Let's do coffee, and start investing in those relationships right away. Let's see that authentic faith right away.
Absolutely. I had a situation last Wednesday night. I was down at the prison in Springville, and during the invitation, we had eight new men come and give their life to Christ at the end of that service, and it was just amazing. And I left, and I was able to have a conversation with a man down there with my friend Tommy. And I said, Tommy, I know I don't have to say this, but I want to make sure that you know those men's names and that you guys are going to scoop them up and walk with them, because they just made a big step, especially in the environment that they live in. So, and he was like, you know how we are. And so, but we're just like you said, Trav, man, we miss that so many times in the church here. Man, we rush to get people to the altar. We rush to get them to that decision, and then we're like, next,
Yep.
and we fail to walk that out with them. And so we just, as men, we need to be, again, intentional. We need to be intentional in stepping up and walking alongside those guys, building the relationships, building the trust so that you can have those conversations that all men need to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? I was remembering yesterday,
I'm so
my
glad you
best
can.
world, my, my best friend in the world died 4 years ago yesterday.
Yeah.
And man, you want to talk about a guy that would just show up. But I want to read this. I went and found this post, and I want to read to you because I have this written in a notebook. What he said to me the last day before we moved to Huntsville, and it all has to go in line with Revelation 12:11. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. And this is what he said. He said, God's restored you to go out and to love the people. That means being intentional. That means getting past yourself and being Jesus to the people who need him right then and right there. He said, in particular, the ones that no one else wants, the throwaways, the outcast, or at least that's what they've been told. He said, your mission is to go out and tell the Peters that it's time to come home, that he's not mad. He just wants you to come home. And I'm really not sure why I'm saying this other than that really solidified me coming out of I'm the tough guy. We don't go through things in life, guys, just to keep it to ourselves. God takes us through trials and tribulations in our life to be a practical answer to God's answer for them. Mm-hmm. And you want to talk about something that will make you, and I'm going to use the word resilient, it will humble you. I remember this, I think it was second or third Sunday, I was at church here in Huntsville. And there was this guy that walked to the front. And if anybody knows, I'm a people watcher. It's what part of my job in San Antonio was. I watch people. Sometimes there's not such good people that come into the church, have the overcoats on, and so we just watch. But when this guy walked past me, man, I heard the Lord say, go tell Peter to come home. This guy had tattoos up to his chin. And so he walked down to the altar. And I walked down there. I know God laughed at me about this. I said, hey, is your name Peter? He said, no, it's Mike. I said, okay, Mike. Well, the Lord told me to tell you it's time to come home. And he looked at me and he had tears just running down his face. And he said, for the first time, from as long as I can remember, somebody welcomed me. It's those kind of things, Randall, that obedience to the word that makes you resilient. It makes you flexible. It makes you pliable. And I know this whole thing we're talking about is dads and husbands, but you have to be the resilient man first before you can be any of those other things. I know your testimony, Travis. I know yours, and I know for a fact, because I've seen it, where God has given you opportunity to say, hey, I know what you went through. Let me tell you the answer God has for you.
Yeah.
And change the whole trajectory of someone's life.
Yep. Yep.
Goodness.
Yeah. Hey, so real quick, just you mentioned something about integrity a while back, and about my little sign in my workplace, my little post-it note where I had posted reputation versus integrity, and got the opportunity to explain that to the people who show up in my workplace every day, and it was really, really cool. But I have a new sign now, Chuck.
Oh,
My new sign says fear versus respect. So, do we do the right thing because we fear the consequence, or because we respect the rules and the things that guide us to do the right thing?
letter of the law versus spirit of the law. Wow.
And it has sparked quite a few conversations already. Very interesting. Very interesting. It's going to be I'm sure there'll be some stories come out of that.
I'm trying to see who put this here. And I don't see it, but whoever wrote this is absolutely dead on.
Michael J. York.
Oh, Pastor Mike, how you doing, brother man? I don't know why it's saying Facebook user, but I guess you are a Facebook user. It's good to see you here, my brother.
That reminds me. We were at the Adult Teen Challenge Center with these guys a while back, and these guys. It's a rehab program, and I know, Randall, you do prison ministry, so it's you deal with a lot of the same audience sometimes, and I went around there one night and asked him. I said, everybody raise your hand if you feel like you've screwed up too much in the past to be of any good. Every single one of their hands went up, and then we rolled into the conversation, similar to what we have now, about there's not a story in that room that God can't use. And if they lean into God and trust God, that there's somebody out there exactly where they either are or are coming out of that could use their story and can see. And we went around the room, and the sad thing to me was I asked him, I said, how many of you have ever been told that by your dad that he was proud of you? And there might have been one, and that was it.
Yeah.
And and we were, and I went around just every one of them. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. And I think that's what, as men, we got to understand is just because we've made mistakes, man, when we start leaning back into God, He's proud of us, and He still believes in us. There's not a bottom that's far enough down that He doesn't still believe in us, that we can't come out of and claw our way back to His feet. And it's just.
It's like the thing that we coined here about a year ago. I suck, but God.
Yeah.
All
truth.
That's it. That's it.
Hey guys, we're at time, and just a note here, we barely got to the end of point number one. That so this is going to be a multi thing. I think sometimes I get a little bit carried away. Maybe I should wind it back a little bit. But here in a couple of weeks, we're going to be going on with our series on resilient fatherhood, and we're going to talk about the anchors of a resilient dad, how to lead, how to abide, those kind of things. But man, this has been so good. I love you guys. Man, y'all encourage me. I sometimes don't know what to think about the looks that Randall's giving me over there. It's like that father to look that we're going to have a conversation after this is over.
Chuck, just be glad he didn't hear the conversation before this. He would have had.
He probably would have hung up. He's like, I don't want to be part of this.
Oh, well, very good, gentlemen. It's been awesome. It's been so good. I look forward to being on here again with you guys here in a couple of weeks and digging into this fatherhood, man. It matters. Fatherhood matters, man. It matters. I mean, that's the beginning of legacy, which we've already spent so much time on, and so I think digging into this as deep as you have laid out, Chuck, is going to be so helpful. We have the time, we have the resources. Why skim across the top? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's do this the right way. Somebody's going to benefit from it.
Yeah, I know I do.
Yeah,
for sure. There's not a conversation that the three of us have that I don't take away something, and it's always beneficial. So, yeah, it's a good day.
The last thing I'll throw out here, I know we're running out of time, is I know there's probably a lot of men out there that are not fathers, and maybe that's by choice or maybe circumstance or whatever. That doesn't mean you can't be a father. There's a lot of young boys out there that are missing out, and these principles apply. I mean, these fatherhood principles are discipleship principles. And
that is
I think the devil's out there. Yeah,
Spiritual fathers.
There.
That is an outstanding point, Travis.
Yes, very
Appreciate
good. Very good. Well, all right, guys. We're going to wrap it up, and man, I've just enjoyed it, man. I love you guys, and look forward to doing this again here in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Y'all have a great night. Go to church somewhere on Sunday.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Y'all have a good night.
All right, see you guys.
Good night.